Well, hard to believe. We're actually talking about national politics from a re-election standpoint. Just seems like we just escaped the silliness, but nothing can be more important than deciding who's going to represent us. I've always said I'll never ask anybody watching one of my shows to vote for somebody. Not my place. I don't have the right to do that. But I do have the right to beg you. Get to learn your candidates, who they are, what they stand for, and then vote. Do not give up the most fundamental, most precious right we have as Americans to choose our leaders. So tonight, we're going to start with a new introduction.
Thank you, Al. Obrigado
Obrigado.
for having me. Como está, my extended Portuguese family. My wife was born and raised in the Azores, and I was born and raised in New England. So I am a longtime New Englander, great Patriot fan. I am a retired fighter from Warwick, Rhode Island, one of the best fire departments in the East Coast, Local 2748. Hello to my guys.
We'll have a debate about TUI Rev 2's department here in Milford.
All right. Great department also.
Who we stand by our...
We're brothers.
I was going to say, between our firefighters and our policemen, I've taken great pride in seeing two demonstrations that concerned our safety officers. One was in the rain when we held out signs that said, "We appreciate it," to our policemen. The second is all these little signs that say, "We support Milford Police." Haven't seen any about the fire department yet, but I think it's assumed it's both.
That's right. That's right. And it's a great, great marriage, an institution we have between each other because we work alongside each other. It's not a Democrat, Republican, red, blue. It's for the good of the community and the people. And that's why I'm doing what I'm going to attempt to do.
Okay, Lou, I got to ask you, why are you going to run for Senator of the United States representing Massachusetts?
I'm honored, humbled, privileged to have an opportunity to have been part of the military for 20 years and hopefully get an opportunity to be the choice and voice of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Is up to this point, I'm the only one who was born in New England and has served under Uncle Sam's call of duty. So it would give me great pleasure to represent the Commonwealth as a working class gentleman who, Ted Williams' son came to my wedding. We've got a strong history of New England traditions, folklore, and so forth and so on. So my wife being of Portuguese descent, I think she's getting on the boat to go home now. She's embarrassed because I'm just joking, but that's not her thing, but mine is just to hopefully help the people and give them another choice beside red and white, because I'm red, white, and blue. It's for the people of the United States, or the people of Massachusetts, not just for a specific party. When I was in the fire department, I didn't ask them if they were Democrat or Republican when I rendered aid to them.
Your house is on fire. Could you tell me what party you are?
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And in the military, it was the same thing. When I was in the foxhole digging holes, I didn't ask what party affiliation, and I work in a lockdown dementia Alzheimer's unit, and I don't ask them when they're laying in bed needing care what the affiliation they're with, so I represent the people.
One of the things that is perplexing is you hear our senators say they're one of the common folk, and they represent the values of the common folk. Do you feel that they are and they do?
No and no. Because when you put yourself in affiliation with a particular group, you are emboldened to that group. You get your money, you have to support their agenda. As an independent person, like the independent man in the State House in Rhode Island, I think for myself. So I've got a vast array of experiences from working in correctional facilities to methadone clinics to lockdown dementia units. I'm familiar with the opioid, diabetic crisis, the military, what we're going through. We're at the lowest number of military personnel since World War I. We've only got 2,000 active duty military right now in the state of Massachusetts. It's sad.
Is that it, really?
That's it. We've got 16,000 National Guard and reservists. I just recently joined into a shoulder-to-shoulder program, which I was chosen out of my school, the Great Nichols College in Dudley. and I go into the veterans' homes who need help in conversation, in redeploying back to civilization, and learning how to readjust. Because years ago, the National Guard and Reservists was 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. Now, because we're 50% of our fighting force, the deployments are much longer, the strain on the family is much longer, the demands for the children of the families are much longer and stronger, and we really don't have the backing that the yellow ribbons in the back of vans display. So I'm here for everybody.
I never understood that, because it's got to be tough. You have somebody that's a guard, and the country needs them, because we're relying more and more on our National Guard, so they call them up. Now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have to reserve, if you're called up, I got to keep your job.
Correct.
But I don't have to pay you.
Correct.
So you could go from an $80,000, $70,000 salary
Sure.
to, you're a private or a corporal, to a
Airman.
$12,000, $15,000.
Correct.
So all of a sudden, it's costing you $5,000, $6,000 a month. But even, if you're making an average man's salary, woman's salary of 40 grand.
Sure.
So that's $3 grand a month, and you cut down to $1,000. Well, $2,000 a month.
Don't go far.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, if I'm running my family, and my contribution is $4,000 a month, and you cut me to one, that's got to put a heck of a strain.
There's troubles. The economic, emotional, separation, difficulties that these families face, seeing it on the news or reading it in print is not the same as being there and seeing the struggles, especially if there was a child with special needs or special limitations with their education and so forth and so on. And so while mom or dad are away doing what they feel is best for the country, the strain it's unspeakable.
Well, I mean, look, I just went away to Shanghai, so I haven't seen my grandson for 5 days.
That's brutal.
And I'm going through withdrawals,
Sure.
right? As soon as I got home, Sunday at 2:30 in the morning, by 8 o'clock, my daughter ran my grandson over.
Sure.
And I sit there and say, my God, am I taking for granted? We're sending our boys and our girls over, and you say, okay, you can come home and see your kids in 8 months.
Sure.
It's amazing what these National Guard people are giving up for our country.
The sacrifice is amazing, and because it's volunteer, like I said, we've got less than 1% of the total population serving in the military right now. We've actually got more people imprisoned than we do serving in the military.
Yeah, I remember years ago, one of the companies I was with, we had one of our employees called up. He was making 80 grand a year, and he was going to get pulled up. I thought he said almost 2 months. It was going to be a month and two. And he's going to make 20 grand a year. We chose as a company to just pretend that we owed it to him. So all we did is, I mean, to be fair, we took what he was getting. We said, we're not going to make you above and beyond, but we're going to make you whole.
Sure.
So for at least those 2 months, we were kicking in 5 or 6 extra thousand a month.
Wow.
But it was not wow. I mean, this guy's out there putting his life on the line.
For our freedom,
And
liberty.
he's not with his daughter and with his darling
Spouse.
bride.
That's right.
So at least I can take the economic burden. I can't do anything about
Sure.
the emotional
Sure.
and that. I mean,
That's a void.
5 days, I'm going into withdrawals. I can't imagine months.
Sure.
You know?
And the unknown, because a lot of the deployments are at areas where they can't be disclosed, so a lot of times the families don't even know where they are. So the danger element is just absolutely amazing. So my heart goes out to the military.
This is worse than the spouse of the police who go out every night and they're worried, will they come home?
That's right. That's right. So the unknown is just absolutely mind-boggling and overbearing to many people, because a lot of the spouses can't take that type of pressure, especially the younger ones who maybe got married in their late teens or early 20s. They're not as well accustomed or adjusted or able to cope with what lays ahead for them. Tremendous amount of stress and pressure. So I'm just pro-military big time.
Now, let's talk about the Second Amendment. Hot topic.
Yep.
What's your position?
Amendment means we have to amend it. So what I would propose is to take a gun safety course for 2 weeks and a written test. And because my CNAs have to take a test to take care of maybe your aunt or uncle or mom or dad, and you have to take a test to drive an automobile, and you have to take a lot of tests, a lot of time to have the authority to brandish such a lethal weapon or piece of equipment, I think a test is warranted.
So you're okay with saying, I should take a test, register,
Sure.
wait 2 or 3 days or whatever till somebody comes back and says, okay, you're not a Looney Tune, you're not a terrorist, you can buy a gun?
I'm a little more stricter than that. I'd like to see a longer wait period.
Okay.
A longer wait period, because a lot of times background checks take a little bit longer than normal. I'd like to see the individuals fingerprinted, because a fingerprint doesn't lie. And again, I'd like to see a test. I'd like to see a written test that had to be performed, as well as a gun safety course to properly maintain.
Well, when I bought my boat, I had to go take a Coast Guard test
Sure.
to get my insurance.
Sure, that's a boat.
It's a boat.
It's a boat.
So
Lethal.
yes, could
Lethal.
be if I'm not
Not in
paying
control.
attention.
That's right. That's right.
So, regardless of whether we debate a day or two, if I'm understanding your position is, yes, you have the right for a gun, but
No doubt about it.
you should prove
The worthiness.
the worthiness of
No
it.
doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Kind of hard to beat that.
No, it's not asking too much. When you get on the registry, some people take driving courses who feel a little bit unfamiliar with driving an automobile, which is another lethal weapon. So I am all for the Second Amendment, but to be amended, because this is now the 21st century, and with that becomes a lot more responsibility and a totally different change of venue than when the amendment was created back in the day.
Well, and again, you start looking at the right to bear arms.
Sure.
Okay. It's not an entitlement, the right to bear arms in a way that endangers everybody around you.
That's right.
So, again, I respect your position saying, okay, just show us, and if it takes 5 days, well, again,
C'est la vie.
yeah. I don't understand why I'd really need to decide this afternoon I want a pistol, and tonight I'm going to go buy it.
Sure. I'd also like to see all the 50 states incorporate the same rules, regulations, provisions, and policies, because like so many towns with the school budgets, instead of incorporating into a larger budget where volume buys product cheaper, we've got so many different variants and so forth and so on. So if we were to come together as the United States, 50 states into one, I think it'd be a little more
Well, the uniformity would help with compliance.
no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Because when I read the difference, I've lived in a couple different states, and
The night and day.
difference Virginia versus Massachusetts. It's like, wait a minute, is this the same country?
Yeah. So that compliance and that uniformity would be huge. Would be huge.
So you're wearing scrubs. Tells me you have something to do with the medical profession.
I'm very, very blessed and very fortunate to have had the careers I've had as a rescue lieutenant in the fire department for 20 years, combat photographer in the Army and Air Force, and now I'm a wound care certified nurse.
Okay, before we go into healthcare,
Yeah.
combat photographer,
Yeah, yeah.
you are one of those people who went into combat with a Nikon?
With an F-250 lens, but I was fortunate that I didn't see combat. I was stationed stateside during the first Iraq War. So my heart still goes out because once I left the military and I became a nurse, I worked in a veterans home in Bristol, Rhode Island. So not only did I serve, but I served their wounds and the diabetic and the psychological and emotional
And I
needs.
know it's so important that we understand what's happening, both from just an academic curiosity point
Sure.
of view, but to understand what our vets are going through, what our fighting people at that point. But I can't imagine what would drive me, and I love playing with my camera, but to go out on the front lines with a 35 millimeter camera
Things have
while
changed.
people are shooting. I got a kick out of the titanium Nikon when they said, well, when bullets hit it, it's got a better chance.
Survival.
Now, wait a minute, I take a camera like this, and I'm worried that a bullet is going to hit my camera?
The MOS was still photographed for combat photographer. So I emphasize the combat only because not seeing combat per se, the risk and the potential was always there, and I was fortunate enough to have been stationed stateside during the early conflict in the early 90s. So the training was still there. I just wasn't given that opportunity to lay out of the belly of a plane or a helicopter to photograph my boys and my sisters doing their jobs.
I remember when we were in Kuwait City, in the Safad area, my darling bride was sitting there, and she told me she was a little nervous about going to Baghdad the next week, because back then the Iran-Iraq war was going on. And I started laughing. I said, you realize Baghdad's like 50 miles from the front,
Sure.
which really isn't a long distance.
No.
I said, look across the bay. That's Basra. There's the fight.
That's right.
And immediately we looked and said, my God, that's right there. But I felt so safe
Sure.
because I had the the military and all, and let's face it, the U.S. is
Sure.
the one that kept the blanket. But that doesn't come without the cost that somebody else's son or daughter
He's in harm's way.
was in front of me,
That's right.
so I could travel around and feel semi-comfortable.
So I want more benefits to be rendered and given to the military, regardless of length of service, regardless of what branch of service. Having served in the military and then served them as patients has given me an understanding that most people don't have. So I've seen war-torn victims, treated them, and it's totally different than what you see in the news and what you read in the papers.
But Lou, realistically, I guess I don't have a really good understanding, but frankly, I don't care. If somebody volunteered to put their life on the line
Sure.
to protect me,
Sure.
I really don't care if they served a week, a month, if they got injured or
Exactly.
not.
Exactly.
I mean, I can't think of,
They volunteered, like you said.
you know,
Volunteered.
my daughter didn't have to go on the front line
That's right.
because somebody else's did.
That's right.
And then when they come home, dang it all, I don't want to hear that, well, maybe we can only take care of these people,
That's right. That's right.
period. There's got to be a way.
And I have a number of proposals and things that I would like to initiate when the time comes, but I can't leak out all that information.
Understood.
I don't want to leak
As
out.
the campaign gets closer, we'll have you back,
I look forward
and
to
then
it.
we'll see. Now, talk to me about health care.
Yep.
I don't understand what's going on in Washington.
Nobody does. You're not alone. But they do such a fine job of producing a mirror image of everything is just peachy keen. Well, it's not peachy keen, and everybody knows it's not. And unfortunately, the latest debacle, in order to replace something, you have to have something in place to replace it with, and it didn't happen. So
See, there's the problem I have with this whole concept of repeal. I would feel much better if it was replace and repeal.
sure.
Show me something better. And I've always had a character flaw that I really do believe you can complain about anything you're willing to fix.
Sure.
But just complaining, I have no
Senseless.
sympathy.
Sure. Sure.
Wait a minute. Tell me what you want me to vote on. And then I'll decide is Lou's
me
idea
choices.
better than Charlie's
Give me
idea.
choices. That's right. That's right. But there was no idea. There was nothing behind it. There was no meat. There was only potatoes in the offering.
Yeah.
Not enough. Not enough. So I'm excited to be able to use my experiences and my young 61 years of being on this great planet. We've got a lot of work to do, and it's just not being done. When the Patriots go into formation, and if the running game doesn't work, you go to another plan. You go to the passing attack. So right now we just have two parties that are constantly infighting. It's like a high school drama debate.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason that I want to also get involved, because I want to at least make it a little better than what it is. I want to give it a shot. I want to give it a go.
Now, practically, you've got the red and the blue. And I was just joking with our senator,
Sure.
who I admire the fact that our rep is deep blue, our senator's
Sure.
deep red.
Sure.
But somehow when
Cohesive.
the needs of Milford come, I see the two of them working together.
It's the way it should be all over the country.
You would hope.
You would hope.
But now the practical end, Mr. Liu says, it's going to cost $1 or $2 for you to run for U.S. Senate.
It hurts.
How do you do that as an independent?
I'm finding that to be difficult because asking for money is not what my life has been about. As a public servant, I just do what I've been told. I was good at following orders, and I was good at leading. And so the toughest thing for me is to probably to ask for donations, but my donation plea will be anywhere from $1 to whatever anybody wants to give me. There'll be no policy or dollar amounts. Whatever anybody can afford as a middle-class person. I've been to a couple of political rallies where the opening auction bid was $50 onto many thousands of dollars. And I'm just a regular working-class guy.
Now,
So,
our senator that you're going up against
oh yeah,
says she's one of the people.
yeah.
Do you feel like she's got the same challenges that most of us have?
No, she's very fortunate. She was born in Oklahoma. She's only been in New England for a couple of decades. She reportedly is estimated to earn between $5,000 and $7,000 per day.
Per day?
Per day. She's a multimillionaire. She is in the upper elite class. So I couldn't represent a millionaire because I'm middle class. So I don't know how she could represent the trials and tribulations of what we face. It just doesn't work out.
Let me put you on the spot.
Sure.
In the Times, of all places, amazing, they reported that our congressmen have a special deal on medical care, that they get a slush fund, which means out of my pocket, your pocket, that pays for 75% of their health care premiums. Your comment?
I'm opting out. I'm opting out. I'm no better than nobody else. So maybe to go on record, I may be the first politician entering the political ring. I'm going to opt out of that privileged club that is beholden to them. I'm out.
Because, you know, part of me says, wait a minute, if you want to really understand what I'm going through,
You've got to go through it. You've got to go through it.
how do you feel that you understand the burden of health care on
Don't.
American citizens
You don't.
if you're paying 25%?
You don't. And you go to the front of the line.
Yes.
You go to the front of the line. I've transported many a patient into the emergency rooms. I've seen a lot of stuff.
So how do you deal with the health care crisis?
The single-payer policy that was proposed doesn't work. You just cannot have the government running anything, as you can see in Scandinavia. Beautiful place. It's not working. We have the upper 1%, which, God bless them, and then we have,
Everybody talks about socialized medicine, the
It doesn't.
panacea.
yeah, it doesn't work.
Have you ever lived under socialized medicine?
No, no.
I
I'm
can
good.
tell you from personal experience, it was the best health care plan I've ever had because I was under Blue Cross.
Ah,
When we lived in France, all socialized
sure.
medicine,
Yep.
I loved socialized medicine because I had a Blue Cross card from America.
You had a Blue Cross card. That's right.
So if you went in as a, which really freaked me out, as a French citizen, you got to wait 2-3 months for what I got the next day.
That's right. That's right.
So I guess when I hear how wonderful socialized medicine is, it's like, yeah, as long as you don't have to participate.
And as long as you stay healthy.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying when you
sure.
get sick,
Sure.
you know, my darling bride hurt her back.
Uh-huh.
Boy, she got treatments and she never waited.
No.
Because when she flipped that Blue Cross card down,
Powerful.
she got payment to them. And it wasn't the, I mean, it wasn't the $32.80.
That was the equivalent of the get out of jail card in a monopoly.
Yes.
Once you have that card, you're golden. You're golden.
So,
Yeah.
you know, when I hear how wonderful, I mean, the Swedish system,
Sure.
yeah. And if I hadn't lived it, like I say, I probably would have a different view if I got sick and had to wait 3 months.
Like they do in Canada. I've got Canadian friends, and yeah, it's great. The price is right, as Bob Barker, but you have to wait. So there are certain illnesses that occur in your body that don't like to wait, like cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's, opioid problems. The list could go on and on. You can't wait months. It has to be taken care of. Great in theory, but a lot of the people who are running the Ringling Brothers Circus, I'm sorry, they went out of business. they don't have a real grasp of what's taking place because they haven't been in an emergency room waiting for 6 hours to be seen.
Isn't that what Margaret Thatcher once said? Socialism is wonderful till you run out of other people's money.
God
Yeah.
bless Margaret Thatcher.
You sit there and say, let's look at practical. Your views on providing health care to immigrants?
Interesting question. So the invisible wall, if somebody is so determined to enter this great country illegally, and we're able to catch, detain, or house them, they will then be given a choice of which military branch to show their allegiance to my country. Jail doesn't work. Prisons don't work. Deportation doesn't work. Walls don't work. But many years ago, in the 1800s, we had the Asiatic barred zone, 1874, and the Asians, the Chinese, come over to build our railroads in California and so forth because they worked very long hours for low pay. And we put a ban on them for 10 years. Now, a lot of people who don't know history don't know a lot of these little facts and figures that I've studied, fortunately. And so if you show your allegiance to me in this country that you want to come in so bad, your family needs a sponsor. I'm not going to punish you because the greatest country in the world, why wouldn't you want to come here? I don't see them fleeing to China and Russia in the numbers that are coming here. But you'll have to show me how much you want to be here, and you're in the Army now, as they say. You'll pick a service if you're of that age group of 18 to 35-year-old male, which many of them are, and you're going to show me how much you want to be in my country.
You know, back the old days when I grew up here in Milford, I never understood why all these people were living in my house. We must have had a dozen families over the years that
Sure.
to come to the U.S.,
Sure.
they needed a sponsor. They did it legally,
Mhm.
and somehow my father would never say no.
Mhm.
So we always had families living in our house,
Sure.
and our family took care of them,
Yep.
helped them assimilate into
Society.
society.
Sure.
They understood that you got to work hard,
Mhm.
play by the rules,
Pay your dues.
pay your dues, and then you got accepted.
Exactly.
I mean, that's, you look at Southeast Massachusetts, all the Portuguese.
Yeah. Love them.
But that's where they all came.
That's right. That's
I
right.
mean, I'm amazed that my grandfather came over in '39 and spent his whole life here working like a dog so he could send money home to the family so that his 3 daughters and wife could live better.
That's right.
Got a hard time turning that down.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at health care, I laugh because the head of our ER here, Jeff Hopkins, he tells me, I am needs blind. When you come in, I take care of you. I don't ask you if you have a Visa, a MasterCard, or a passport.
That's right.
So one way or another, we're giving medical treatment
No doubt
to
about it.
everybody that's here.
No doubt about it.
And I'll dare anybody to reasonably say if they were at that door and a sick kid came over,
We're not going to turn them away.
you're not going to turn your
We're not
back on
going to turn them away. That's just not human nature. Empathy and compassion is a tremendous tribute and attribute, and as Americans, thank God we have it. So nobody gets turned away.
Our Governor Baker just filed a proposal, if you want to call it, into the legislature that said the Supreme Court of Massachusetts did away with ICE detainers. So he put a bill in to say, not only can you really should, if you have an illegal immigrant who's committed a crime, you really should hold them. And I just talked with Senator Fatman, and I said, I'm really confused. So if I rape, pillage, murder, I'm an American citizen. If I scoot over the border to another state, I can be arrested and they can extradite me.
Correct.
If I'm an illegal alien
Yep.
who does the same things, you're not supposed to hold them. You're supposed to let them go.
Go figure.
You want to comment on that for me?
It's similar to how I feel about political immunity, diplomatic immunity, when somebody from another country comes over, commits a crime, and gets a free pass. No, it doesn't fly with me. You have to pay your dues. You've got to pay
But this
dues.
whole sanctuary city, now sanctuary state,
Yep. Yeah. It's tough enough to protect the victims and the innocent, and now we're going to protect the possible perpetrators and anybody else who seeks to do harm or injustice to the poor citizens who just happen to be had that policy voted into their state. I'm just not for it. I'm not for it at
and
all.
again, I could see if our local police chief was just looking at people who aren't here legally, grabbing them and deporting them. But I don't see that. What I hear is Tom is saying, our police chief, that it's not his role, nor is it legal for him to take an undocumented and an illegal alien and deport him. Because where can he deport him to? Rhode Island? You know, I mean, he has no.
Who's going to bear the cost?
Well, yeah, but he has no right to.
Sure.
Okay, I caught you.
Sure.
You're not in Massachusetts legally. I'm going to send you to New Hampshire.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But on the other hand, I like his approach that says, but if you
Yep.
rob, break and enter, do something bad in Milford, I'm going to go after you for that.
It recently happened, and they caught him in New Jersey.
Right.
So
now-
it's everywhere.
So now the question is, because he was not a legal U.S. citizen, he's in New Jersey, should you let him go?
No, can't.
But that was the law, right?
Yeah.
You can't detain him for ICE to grab him.
Not all laws are perfect. Not all laws are perfect. There's no perfect anymore. But in situations like that, I also have ideas, just as I have ideas about Guantanamo, how I'd like to fix that situation. So, like I said, down the road, I'll be giving more specific ideas and thoughts into these very important issues that face the voters. And it's not red and blue, it's red, white, and blue. The bottom line is we're all Americans. And so the great culture you come from, the proud Portuguese people, and I'm Italian, Irish, Catholic, very proud of the cultures, and hard workers, very hard workers. So I want to represent the red, white, and blue, not just a specific color group.
Well, and you say something very profound because we laugh, and your wife says, well, I'm Portuguese.
Oh, sure,
Okay. I claim to be Portuguese.
sure.
I'm from Milford. My parents, and I'm very proud that
Sure.
they came from Portugal.
Sure.
But if you put me in Portugal, I wouldn't know what's going on.
But you'd enjoy it.
I'd love it, but
Yeah.
realistically,
Sure, sure.
I'm an American.
Correct.
You know,
Bottom line is we are all Americans.
and that's where you start.
That's right.
Really,
your
looking-
heritage is Portuguese.
Right.
You're an American, and that's what it's all about. As great as Portugal is, your parents came here for a reason, and so the freedom, the liberty, just the everyday experiences that very few countries can afford is one of the reasons why everybody wants to come here illegally. So we take it for granted. We take a lot of things for granted in this country, and I just want to make the people aware of how fortunate we are when less than 1% of my brothers and sisters are putting their lives on the line overseas in all the military bases, which I would never close down one military base because we've got two adversaries right now that are just licking their chops as they see us implode from within. I'm very, very big in the military. I have a lot of strong feelings on the military.
But now, when you look at our commitment to NATO, we're paying 75% of that bill. Does that seem reasonable?
No one have a solution for that. So for those who can't afford, I need troops. I need you to send me troops. I can understand you're in a little dire straits with your euro. I need troops. Because it was amusing to me when I heard our coalition forces years ago in one of our conflicts. I think we had 2 people from Greenland, 1 from Antarctica, 3 soldiers from Iceland. That's not a coalition force. I need an amount of force equal or a little less than what we're
We're going to
providing.
put 5,000 American kids,
Yeah.
and we're going to put the 5 from the other countries out
Doesn't
front.
work. Yeah, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. So for those who are having economic problems, I need bodies. But I need a consensus. I need a consensus among those countries to meet and say, we're in agreement with your proposal, and we will send you those troops. Because we cannot police the world no longer anymore. We've run out of money. I want to know how we're repaying the $20 trillion in debt that was back a ways. No one's talking about how we're repaying that. So we also are in economic straits. China owns us, and I want to know how we're repaying all this money. I haven't heard the answer
I
yet.
mean, if you think about it, the one thing our previous president was very consistent. He came in and he said his main goal was wealth redistribution.
Oh, sure was.
And when I think about it, and you say, okay, he took the national debt through the ceiling. Made perfect sense because he knows eventually when you got to pay the piper,
You're out
It's-
of office.
he's gone,
Gone.
and the people who are going to pay are the ones he wanted to move money from the top to the bottom. But where does that stop?
He recently charged $400,000 to give a speech. I give speeches for free all the time to my patients. Elizabeth Warren is a little more economical. She only charges $250.
I was
So you
saying, she's only at a quarter.
Yeah, she's not doing too bad for herself either, so it's a lot of hypocrisy. I'm not into that type of venue. If somebody wants any advice or anything that I have to say, it's going to be for free. But I have to say one thing in President Obama's defense. He could sell ice cubes to an Eskimo. What transpired over the past 8 years
Oh, he was a great
mind-boggling.
communicator.
Tremendous orator. He
I
would have
mean-
been great in the Roman Empire. Great. But because I'm an independent candidate, I have to represent Americans, not just one particular side, and now redistribute wealth. I have the 1%, and just about every politician in Washington, D.C. is a millionaire because they start off at roughly $179,000 a year times 6, puts them over the $1 million mark. And the lower end of the spectrum, the faction that stays home and watches Leave It to Beaver reruns with Cheetos and Doritos, there has to be an adjustment made because the middle class cannot, there's no more blood in the stone. So there has to be redistribution. There has to be some type of payback. And I also have ideas on what I'd like to do with that.
Is there enough money in the top 1% to fund the bottom 99?
I think there is. I think they're like Geppetto and we're Pinocchio. They pull the strings. So I'm Pinocchio, and like the crisis in the late 2000s, that housing economic burst, many conspiracies floated around because the middle class were gaining ground. And because they were, it was interesting how the politicians were able to manipulate Wall Street and so forth and so on. It's done all the time. It's just part of the game. And so it was interesting because all of a sudden, the middle class got very quiet, and a lot of them lost a lot of what they worked so hard for. So just being Pinocchio, I'm just looking out for Pinocchio.
Now, we're hearing so much about North Korea. I mean, I've been on record where I've said I never really worried about the Soviet Union initiating a nuclear strike because, I mean, I used to go there every other week for a long time. Their life wasn't as good as ours, but they had a good life. Kids weren't starving. You know, you could feed your family. I worry about some of these rogue nations. You know, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-dingaling.
I have feelings on that also, and proposals. They're bordered by 3 countries, China, South Korea, and just a little bit of Russia. Collateral damage. When your heart starts getting occluded with pepperoni pizzas, it collaterally builds little walls which blood will flow. The collateral damage from that type of conflict would be disastrous because the Winter Olympics are being held in South Korea next year, number 1. And what's amazing to me is having Japan as our ally and the collateral damage that would fall out from that. That is a lose-lose situation
Well,
right now.
yeah, you can't
Lose-lose.
nuke North Korea
You can't nuke anybody. Nobody.
without everybody. I mean, remember Chernobyl?
That's
All
right.
of Europe felt
and
the
they still do.
aftermath.
And they still do. They still do.
So what do you do with Kim Jong-dingaling?
Again, I have ideas of which I will propose at a later date, but war is not the answer right now because of the total anarchy and destruction that would be inflicted upon Seoul and Japan because they are within range. Even though propaganda states they can reach us, I'm not buying into it. 50% of North Korea is malnourished. And if you see the pictures of soldiers, all you'd have to do is throw out a couple of Big Macs and they'd be very, very happy. So I have an idea of how we can, it's not the North Koreans' fault, and it was like similar to North Vietnam and South Vietnam. I can't tell the difference. I don't know about you. So there's families involved in North and South Korea. This is just a
Well, they've been
madman.
split.
Correct. This is
The
just
38th parallel, I've never seen a picture that has a line painted.
there's,
you
no
know,
yellow,
it's-
there's no yellow police tape.
Right.
So there's families. So when you hear about North Korea wanting to destroy us, it's not North Korea. I feel it's this one missing unit who is a little genetically disoriented, and there are things that I have that I'll come out with at a later date.
Where would you start if you were the senator
Uh-huh.
representing Massachusetts?
Mm-hmm.
You show up in Washington.
Yep. The first thing I'm doing is I'm calling a meeting between China, Russia, South Korea, and Japan, all the adjoining countries. And I'm going to ask them for their opinions. And if it was in their backyard and they were being threatened, what their response would be. Now, because we're allies with Japan and South Korea, of course, we have to protect them. And I'd like to see more troop numbers. We've only got 28,000 and so forth troops on the South Korean border. And we've had some bad times with Japan, but it's a love-hate relationship because we've had some bad incidents, but that can be fixed. So I would get them all together. I'd be on Air Force 31 or whatever they would give me, a little U-boat, and go over, and I would have to meet. Sanctions don't work. Sanctions don't work. So with the...
Why don't sanctions work?
They're not enforced. They're not
But, you know,
enforced.
I guess my impression always is when we put sanctions, I don't think Kim Jong-dingeling is going without a Big Mac tonight.
No, he's not. Just I think his head weighs 80 pounds, so he's not starving.
So, you know, the small group that you want to influence
Okay.
seem that they take a big chunk of the trough first.
Yes, they do. There's only two people that can drive in North Korea, military and politicians. No one else can drive. No one else has a license in North Korea. So education is key to what's taking place in Asia. And so the Americans and the rest of the world have to be updated and re-educated on what's taking place there. I really don't think the North Koreans want to annihilate us. I think this is just a dynasty who has an agenda, and pretty soon he has to do something to live up to his reputation. But he's not all there, and so to take it out against the country, right now, we can't do it.
You said Gitmo.
Yep.
Your feelings on relations with Cuba?
I'm only going to let this little one out of the bag. I would close down Guantanamo. It would be relocated to a beautiful island in the middle of San Francisco Harbor called Alcatraz. Built and rebuilt by my Guantanamo people, some of my gang members, and some of our more ruthless convicts. Because the subsidy that we pay for them to lease the land goes to Russia. Like when we send up a poor astronaut, I have to pay Russia to put that money back in their military. So you tell me, how come nobody else has thought of these things? I don't sleep enough maybe, but I think of it all the time. I'm paying them for their lease to give back to Russia because Cuba owes Russia. So that money is going into the military. The military has grown incredibly. It's scary to see how their military, and like you mentioned earlier, the pride is just...
But now, you mentioned sanctions don't work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been sanctioning Cuba for
Forever.
how many decades?
Forever. How old is Fidel?
Right?
Yeah.
Why not just open the floodgates? I mean, to me, American democracy versus communism, we seem to have a pretty good track record when we go one-on-one. You know, you mentioned the Patriots. Well, if the running game is working and they can't stop it, takes a lot longer than a passing game, but why wouldn't you stick with it?
Russia has too much control. Russia is Geppetto, Cuba is Pinocchio. There's only 5 communist countries left in the world. China, Laos, Cuba, Russia, and I think Vietnam. There's only 5 communist countries left. So they're all under the dictatorship of the two.
But now, when you say, you know, China is communist,
Yeah.
yes, it is to a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really strange when I got there and I go to Google
sure.
and it says, no,
It's a weakened communism.
Beidou.
Sure, sure.
You know, I go to Facebook,
Sure.
no.
Yeah.
WeChat, which is copies but censored by the government. So I'm already feeling like Mao Zedong would be rolling over in his
And
miserable
Zhou Enlai
grave.
would also be, that's right. That's
You
right.
know,
That's right.
Ho Chi Minh, if he saw what was happening in Vietnam, you know, when you look at some of the economies, they're growing because they're opening up private farms. They're opening up, I mean, basically capitalism to a
Certain
controlled
degree.
degree.
Yet it's controlled, like when England released Hong Kong back to them. Now, no civilization in the history of time has grown so much, so fast in the past 100 years as China. When I see their military pictures on my websites, it's fearsome. We don't have that kind of numbers. I don't think we have enough bullets. And they're hungry. And they send many of their people over here to get educated. I happen to house some from a Woodstock Academy in Connecticut, and I know what they're about. And it's scary, yet interesting. But they come over here to learn, and then they go back.
But see, isn't that a powder keg just waiting?
No doubt about it.
You got all these millennials,
No doubt about it.
or whatever the next name label is after millennials, sitting there living with tech.
Sure.
And you know, when I went and I said, they said, well, you know, we can't have Facebook. We have government WeChat. Well, wait a minute. If you get a taste of freedom,
Sure.
feels like there's a little crack in the dam,
Sure. No doubt about it.
and Beijing government is clamping down as much as they can, but they never seem to seal the crack.
Every now and then they'll seep out like Tiananmen Square, and they ran over them poor things. So they still have that stronghold on them, though. Even though there may be cracks, they still have the stronghold. I would never allow what's taking place in the South China Sea with the Spratly Islands. Really? We're letting them do whatever they want with no repercussions. And then we have the other dingaling, Duterte, in the Philippines.
Killing his own people by the...
So this is what we're dealing with right now. And we have the other problem with Turkey and that side of the world. We have so many fires burning right now, and the only thing they're worried about is President Trump's collusion with Russia. Really? We got a lot more sausages and linguices in the frying pan to worry about. Believe
And
me.
I laugh because now it's not just Trump's collusion. Well, let's go back to Hillary's.
Sure, sure.
I mean, do we really want to bring that back?
No.
When you're looking at what's going on with missile launches, those to me are issues that really worry me.
Those are like a mortal sin in the Catholic religion. Those are mortal. So these are things that concern me. What was done yesterday is done because the red and the blue have done it. Nixon got caught. I'm sure there were blue members that got away with it. So when I refer to the mortal sin, we have so many bigger issues going on than just what the media is
You look
driving.
back at Richard Milhous himself. To this
Brilliant.
day, I believe
Yeah.
if he had gotten up in front of the American public and said, I blew it. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Please forgive me.
No doubt about it.
Americans don't tend to kick people when they're down.
No, wrongly advised.
But he did a Hillary. I'm above the law.
That's right.
And, you know, all the way back to when the little boat sailed over from that island we call England, people didn't really like the idea of why you think you're king? Why you think you better than me? Right? And that, I think, is what sunk Nixon, Hillary.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're insulting my intelligence. You're not any better than me.
No. And that's part of the reason why I'm just a Pinocchio in the spectrum of the political race is I'm no better than nobody else. The man upstairs has been very good to me. I live paycheck to paycheck. I don't have a problem with it.
So doesn't 90% of
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm grateful that I can still stand vertically, and I'm able to contribute to society.
There. Sunday, I sat back and I said, you know, you did good by me because I had my sainted mother, my darling bride, my 2 daughters, and my grandson. We were just all hanging out watching TV.
It's all about family.
And I'm sitting there saying, what more?
Yes. Do you want?
Do I want a spiffier car or a bigger TV?
Material.
Yeah, that's kind of nice.
Material. Yeah,
But
sure, it's
wait a
material.
minute.
Yeah.
What more do I really need than to see my daughter still wanting to come home?
How neat is that?
You know, having my oldest daughter still wanting to take me out to the movies.
Sure.
I mean, my wife laughs at me. She says, what
What
are
a
you going to
cool-
go see?
What a cool
I
day.
said, I'm going to see my daughter.
That's right.
But what movie? I said, I don't care.
That's right.
I'm going out with my daughter and her husband.
My daughter just left with my 2 beautiful grandchildren. He's a firefighter out in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And I think my most favorite word that I had heard the past couple weeks was Grandpa. Grandpa, he's 2 years old. So family, getting back to the basics. Without a firm base, you're destined for trouble. You need a strong family unit to be successful. That's the bottom line. There's
Now,
nothing more
we're
important.
running into a huge crisis here with the opioid epidemic. What do we do?
Again, I worked in a methadone clinic. Methadone is a legal narcotic. It's an enabler. Does it work? Everybody has their opinion. I have thoughts on how I think I can help that situation. Governor Christie is the czar of the opioid crisis, but I don't know if he has a handle on it.
I was going to say, has he done anything?
I'm not sure, but I'm not throwing stones at glass
No,
houses because
I
a lot
don't
of
have a
times they
better
bounce back in my-
alternative, so
but
I can't.
I have ideas that I think may work because I not only dispensed the methadone to some of these patients, I drove them to the methadone clinics while they were being dispensed.
Wow.
So I've had conversations. So I've been behind the scenes. I've been very fortunate to have been a part of that. And just like the correctional facilities, I've been fortunate to have seen what goes on behind closed doors. So those are huge life experiences that most people only read about at CNN or Fox or whatever news station they go to.
Well,
I've
I
been
think
there.
it's hard for a lot of us to understand because when we grew up, and I'm 60, almost 61 like you, the heroin addict, sleazy guy
Sure.
in a dark alley
Sure.
in Boston, you know.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden you look and say, today, it could be your neighbor's kid who played football for Milford High, hurt his knee and got hooked on pain pills,
Oxycodone.
got hooked on Oxy.
It's that and the diabetic epidemic is really going to shake this country. The reason diabetes has become such a big platform and issue, medical issue, is because your parents and grandparents were physical workers. We slowly are evolving more into couch potato, technological workers than physical workers. So the amount of diabetics in my older population pales in comparison to the newer generation. I don't know how we're going to be able to afford it. And then throw in the opioid problem, huge. Because that's not a problem that goes away. If you get insulin, you're going to be taking insulin for quite a long time, if not lifetime. The opioid crisis, you're not going to be healed in a month or 2 weeks of counseling. It doesn't work like that. It's made to appear like that, but it's not. Because not only are those people who are the victims, their families are also the victims. They face embarrassment, they face scorn, they face many things that aren't reported. So they're
But
also
even
victims.
again, the emotional drama.
It's huge.
You know, if you see your son or daughter hooked on something,
Hooked on something and stealing from your own jewelry case to support the habit. Sad. I've been there, done it. Yeah, brutal.
I mean, that's got to kill you because you start internalizing and saying, what did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? Yeah.
Why did I let him play football or her play soccer?
Sure.
It was my fault because they got injured because I let them do it.
And you know, you can't look at things like that because some things are just out of our control. You can lead the horse to the water, you can't make them drink. And I would never tell my children they couldn't do something. And a lot of times the only way to succeed is to fail. You fall beside the coffee table before you walk. You hang on, and so that's how you learn. You sometimes have to fall to learn the right way. And so, unfortunately, I've been fortunate to have met a lot of these people, and there's a certain majority that just don't want to be helped. We had the methadone clinic would start allowing the workers in. They were the first ones. And there weren't a lot of workers. And so a lot of them don't want to be helped. And it's sad, but that's because the resources and the right implementation of plans aren't in effect yet. And I have ideas down the road.
So now, take a side step. I see a Patriots logo on that scrub.
It's awesome.
What's that about?
I work security for the Patriots, and I absolutely love it. So when I'm not in school, I'm a full-time student at Nichols. I graduate with my psychology degree in December. I work for the Patriots.
Wait a minute, you're still in school?
Oh yeah, it's the best. School is cool. And I tell kids, knowledge is power. And when I was in school, when I was decades earlier, of course I didn't want to be because I was told I had to. So now I go back and I just made the dean's list, and when I got my letter in the mail, I said, Howard Dean or Jimmy Dean. I'm not used to being on any. The only list I'm used to being on is the battle list from my Portuguese wife, who is brutal, but she is awesome because she's Portuguese and she is driven. And I just can't say enough about the culture because it's very, very neat to have that extended family to be blessed with. It's just indescribable. But my extended family being the Patriots is also pretty cool. Very neat.
So you're doing security for the Patriots?
The Patriots.
And going to school?
And going to school and working. I work in a lockdown dementia unit on weekends.
Do you ever sleep?
1 to 2 hours a week. That's all my wife allows me. She's tough, I said. She's Portuguese. She's from the Azores, Fayal. Tough woman. But yeah, I'm able to get by with just a little bit at a time. I'm driven.
So we're coming to the end.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to ask you, why should I vote for you?
Yep.
How would you answer?
I'm going to represent you. I am going to be an advocate for the mental health people who are the silent minority, my Alzheimer dementia patients who don't have a voice. I'm going to represent all the little Pinocchios out there because I'm with them. So my life experiences, and I would like to meet and greet as many constituents as I can so they can hear some of my thoughts that I will not tweet about or Facebook about, and they will meet me and understand where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you for
And
having
we
me.
look forward to having you come back during the
Look forward to it.
campaign and fill in all the blanks.
I look forward to it.
As always, never ask you to vote for any specific candidate. Not my place, not my right, but I will beg you, get to know all the candidates. Find out who is more like you and has your values and will best represent you. So thank you, and to our 6 loyal viewers, God bless and good night.
Thank you so much, Al, for having me. I greatly appreciate it. I'm watching Mom also.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just